Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. There are probably as many different kinds of ways to run a role-playing game as there are game masters running them. It's a form of free-form storytelling that can employ any number of different creative techniques and communications techniques, presentation ideas. There's just a huge number of ways you can actually go about the process. There's the folks who use the miniatures and the maps, and I've done that. It's a good skill. Every game master should pick it up. Moving miniatures around a map, or having a whiteboard or a hex grid that you could mark on with dry erase markers or whatnot, so that you can keep position of things and track where the fireballs are, which can be very visual as well as tactile experience. Really good for setting an area, especially in a combat situation, or if you're doing dungeon exploration or stuff like that. You want to have that visual record that everyone can watch. Me, I prefer, personally, a technique called theater of the mind. I like to tell the story and lay everything out by voice and let the imagination of the players make the visual references happen. It means that there's going to be some things that people have differences on, and sometimes you're going to have to clarify things because you'll get misunderstandings. The more practice you put into this, and the more you get a feeling of exactly what you need to explain so that everyone has the right idea about where you're at, the better off you are. One of the reasons I enjoy doing theater of the mind is because I have a background in improvisation. Back in high school, I was part of the school's debate team for a while, until I found out that the forensics tournaments had a contest called Team Dual Improvised Acting, or Dual Improvisation, where you'd get randomly matched with someone else and given a random scene, and then you would have 5 minutes to act, a few minutes to prepare with your partner, and then you had to just improv a scene out. I was pretty good at that. We never won anything there because there was an awful lot of very good people in that who've been doing it for longer than I had. But my background in the theater helped a lot. And then as time went on and I started to take acting classes and get more into my theater arts degree, improvisation came to be one of those really important tools that I would work on, dedicate myself to. The role-playing group at that college, Merrimack Community College, St. Louis Community College at Merrimack, really helped with that too. Because when you're playing a role-playing game, when you're playing a character, that's pretty much all improvisation. You are given a situation and you need to act that character. There's dice rolls and numbers, and you have an idea of what the character is capable of, but what the character is doing, that's up for you to come up with on the fly constantly during the game. And the game master has the luxury of being able to prepare for a number of things in the game. Can prepare for prepare a scenario, prepare descriptions of things that are coming up, can stack up visual references. Buy a module and you basically have most of the preparation that you need to have going into a role-playing game. Or if you're writing your own material, you can get as much stuff set up beforehand as you think you need. But it's never enough. No plan survives encounter with the enemy. no planned adventure survives encounter with player characters. Because those people on the other side of the table are improving, and they are going to push the limits, and they are going to see if they can find a way around that carefully constructed trap that there is no written way around. But people are brilliant. In groups, they can be more so, and if you have a situation as a game master where you have set up an impassable trap that must be dealt with in exactly the way that you feel it must be dealt with, your players are going to rip it out of the wall and pitch it into space. So, no matter what you do as a game master, no matter how much preparation you have, you're going to be improvising. Now, I spent over a decade running games for Strategicon in Los Angeles. It's 3 game cons a year during the 3-day weekends, and you get 4-hour slots. You show up as a game master with pre-prepared characters, and so you know what the characters are and what they can do, but you have no idea what a completely random group of people are going to do with them once they've picked them up. And that is the biggest wild card you can get. You don't know these people. These aren't your gaming group. These aren't people whose thought processes you may have been able to predict all along. These are completely random folks. They're going to do things with your characters and with your game that you have not anticipated, and that's half the fun. But at the same time, that means you've got to have an edge on your improvisation. Because nothing stops a game and lessens the enjoyment of all the people there, including the game master. Like the game master having to go, let me take 5 or 10 minutes to sit back and think of what effect that's going to have on my scenario. You can build the best villain, the most powerful robot, the most devastating monster, and someone's going to shoot the floor out from under it or drop a space shuttle on it or well, you know, when I was collecting all that stuff before that you didn't think was important, that's actually an explosive compound. My character's got a chemistry skill, and now we're just going to nuke the whole thing. All of these things have happened to me as a game master at convention games, and far more. Convention games are brutal. And if you walk into them with the idea that everyone's going to walk out with a story and have fun, it's awesome. If you walk into that with the idea that the game master is a contestant playing against the players, you're gonna hate life a lot. But improvisation is what I'm talking about today. And there are ways that you can work on your improvisation. I talk to myself a lot. Usually when I'm alone, often when I'm alone, because when you do it when there's people around, it's a little crazy. Seems like it's a little crazy. As a writer, it's something I have to do because you need to sometimes sound out what a character is saying or thinking or doing. Because I do villain-based plotting, both in games and when I write stories and books, I need to hear that villain's voice. I need to work through that villain's plans. I need to question what the villain has on the table and see if it is going to work. And sometimes when you're talking to yourself to get you to work out a scenario, you need to task yourself. You need to have something driving that conversation. Words that don't mean anything, that you weave into meaning. And that's a little bit hard to explain, but I might be able to demonstrate it. I took a trip recently to a furniture store. You may have one in your area. They're Swedish furniture store. And this particular furniture store has a number of unusual names for products. Let's work out some kind of scenario, some kind of a character. Ooh, I like I'm working on the space mecha in my mecha book right now. So, some kind of inspector or investigator for a safety or engineering firm, and who's gone to a planet where they're trying to produce mecha and needs to discuss problems on the production line. I'll let you see what I'm seeing as I do this, because while I was at this furniture store, I went to the food shop at the end of it and recorded some video of the various product names. So, come up with a little accent. And so, Professor Varflor, yes, I know we are interfering with the operations of the Sotsak Kakobal mines, but we are not getting our supplies of Damsugare, and we cannot produce the Peppercaramex. Not even the Ugrand version. The war against the Godis is not going very well, and we figure that we're going to need to hoist this up a little bit. So, the Count Boulard and I are going to sit down with you, and we are going to have a discussion that you're not going to kickling on Boulard, if you know what I mean. The silt supplies are going to have to keep coming. We're going to need our lingen if we are going to finish this war out, or it's gradsas for us all. So, sit down, make yourself some more crust, and we will get this over with as soon as we possibly can, yes? No, perhaps you would prefer some Yulmust. Yulmust isn't good. Yulmust is a drink that there's a couple of drinks that you could usually get around this time of year. There's Glog, which for some reason they stopped carrying because it was delicious and fantastic. It was also really easy to mix with brandy, and it's a really good solution for a sore throat. Julmust, they call it the Swedish festive drink. It's sugar, basically, if you look. And how they managed to make sugar taste not sweet, but more like flat Coca-Cola with charcoal mixed into it, I don't know. It is better cold, I suppose. So we agree, you must follow us on this, or we are all going to be in the unnamed cookies. Yes. Guess we can find no names on these cookies. Okay, at this point it breaks down a little bit, but the practice of improvisation is one of those things that any game master will find tightens up just about all of their games. Whether you know it or not, every time you role play on either side of the table, you are practicing your improvisation. And the better you get at thinking on the fly, the more of a immersive experience you're going to be able to provide to your gamers. You want people to believe that absolutely everything that comes out of your mouth is something you had planned. You want people to come back after a game and ask you, what if we'd have turned left? Because you seemed like that might have been a bad move. When you didn't really care whether they turned left or right, because they're going to meet the monster either way. A meme that's been going around online is that a game master should use 99% of a good game should be drawn from the player's paranoid conjecture. I follow that rule very closely. I believe in a technique that I have come to call suddenly a shot rings out. Here's how suddenly a shot rings out works. You have a situation, you get your people together, the characters either know each other or they don't. It helps a little bit if they do because that clears things up down the line. You put them together in the same place at the same time, something to give them time to socialize. They're sitting in a bar, they're at their headquarters, they've gone to a tavern, they're attending a conference of some sort. The players get a chance to talk in character for a little bit. Well, what are you working on? Well, who are you? What's this thing over here? What do you think about what's going on? And then suddenly a shot rings out. Doesn't matter what happens, someone gets shot at. Doesn't have to be one of the player characters. It can be anyone. A shot rings out across the conference hall. A person goes running through the room screaming on fire, chased by men in suits. Something huge happens. Something that can probably be resolved with conflict. You want people to start thinking about pulling out what weapons they've got because it's a role-playing game, and even the pacifist has a stunner on them someplace. A combat occurs. You hope a combat occurs. Combat ends up, the group gets a chance to look for clues. They find something that leads them to another area where they can go and they investigate what's going on. They look around for stuff and a fight breaks out. Suddenly a shot rings out. Combat occurs. They search. They find their clue. They go to their next location. They get a chance to investigate. Suddenly a shot rings out. You can keep this going in a cycle for as long as you have your session. Towards the end of the session, when you've gotten 4 or 5 good jumps on them, there's a boss fight. There's something huge. Oh, there's this thing that's finally really behind it. Here's the big boss. Here's the computer behind it and all the robots that are protecting it. Here's the wizard who's been sending people out all day long trying to get this one thing. Here's the fight. Make it hard. Do not try and kill player characters. Do not try and save player characters. Make this fight as fair as you possibly can. Throw in as much difficulty as you feel is necessary. The players need to be challenged. The characters need to find their limits. 1 or 2 people get knocked out of the fight, that's fine. You start to kill the whole party, bad guy runs out of hit points. You're not trying to kill everyone. Now, there is probably a story behind exactly what is going on there. It would be very surprising if there wasn't. There's stuff happening, there's people getting shot, and there's stuff and clues, and I found this key. Can we work out what it goes to? Or this card has the name of this club on it. It's closed, but maybe we can get in. You don't have to throw out a lot as a game master for those things to find meaning. Finding meaning in those, actually not your job. If you've got players who are engaged in the game and who are engaged in the background, the game master only needs to sit back and nod and occasionally say things like, I suppose that could be the answer. Or, yeah, that would be really interesting if that was the case, wouldn't it? Because your players are going to write your game. Maybe it's some kind of a wizard looking for components. Maybe. That's a possibility. These things all seem very component-like now, don't they? Maybe there's some kind of a conspiracy going on here. I mean, everyone who's jumped at us has had the same ring on, haven't they? Well, make a roll. Yes, yes, they have. Very good. I'm glad someone spotted that. It's not cheating. It's a way to give the players input. And frankly, haven't you always wanted to sit down at a role-playing game, if you're a gamer, and have the adventure that you kind of want to have? You want to do things. You've been thinking about this character all the time since the last session. You've been working out things that they can do, and wouldn't it be awesome if this happened? And wouldn't it be awesome if that happened? This is not to say that the Game Master cannot introduce a storyline of their own or actually have something behind this. I've got this very, very clever thing. All they need to do is make one investigation roll, and they know that it's there, and then they can find this awesome thing that I've got, and no one's going to investigate. That'll be the time that they don't. That'll be the time they miss it. Or everyone rolls, and, oh, nope, none of us made it, so I guess we're just going to go over there now. Because that happens with stunning regularity. At any point in time in the middle of a game, if the Game Master gets lost, they can throw suddenly a shot rings out, and the players can put the game back on track. Or they can take it places it was never meant to go, but when you get to that end bad guy, there's no reason that can't just be the end bad guy that the Game Master had planned all along. And the thing about it is, when you do that, when the players think they've got their way around and, oh wait, what if we go this way and not that way? And then we're going to find this, and you get to that fight that everyone thought they'd avoided, and it's exactly what the players are trying to do. And the players will look at the Game Master at this point in time and go, oh my God, you planned this all along, you sick, brilliant bastard. And the skilled Game Master just kind of nods and shrugs and takes credit for it. It's one style of game mastering. It's a tool that I keep in my belt as a game master. You have to have a kit. And this one, I have demo characters for the Victory System online, free downloads as PDFs. So any place I can get to a computer and a printer, I can just run a game. Characters even have little cheat sheets for how to get into the system. So if I've got first-time players, they've got a little set of the rules. Boom, right there. What I might not always have on me is, all of my books or an adventure ready to go. So I throw suddenly a shot rings out. And suddenly, it's a game. There's a couple of times this hasn't worked. I want to tell you about one of my favorites. Actually, two. I'll tell you two stories. This is a two-story video. Story number one, convention game, cyberpunk game. Everyone's these really dangerous edge runners with all these combat skills and investigation abilities. People able to hack into the World Wide Web with their minds, and sitting in a dangerous bar, because all bars in cyberpunk are dangerous. There's this mystique that goes with alcohol and drinking, but when you're in cyberpunk, everyone's got a gun. Everyone's looking over their shoulder. There's a deal about to happen somewhere. At any moment, something could happen. A woman runs from the back of the bar, screaming and on fire, and jumps out the front window. The characters at the table, all the players are like, huh, well, that was interesting, but I'm going to finish my drink. You'd expect some actions, like, does she need help? Is there something going on? Did she set my drink on fire? A bunch of guys in combat armor with assault rifles go running through the bar after, knocking over some tables, but, going around the PCs. And the player characters are all, ooh, that looks really dangerous. Those guys are on some kind of yeah, we better let them do their job. And I don't know if my entire table of players, this particular convention game, just didn't understand the cyberpunk thing, or it was a concerted effort to go, the game master's trying to give us a game. F that! We're going to sit here and have roleplay having drinks until something interesting happens. When you force feed your players an ideal opening to an adventure, and they sit back and suggest that they're waiting for an adventure to happen, they have nothing to say when nothing happens. This group eventually wanders out of the bar, finds the limousine that the woman arrived in for her deal in back, gets in it, steals the car, drives off. It has suddenly become Grand Theft Auto Cyberpunk. There's no one in it, and they're joyriding around town in a limousine. It's kind of awesome. At this point in time, the game master is free and clear to hose these people mercilessly. They got into a strange limousine in a technologically advanced future that was owned by someone who had been set on fire and chased down by combat troops. Not my fault that the limousine is full of security systems and that suddenly helicopters with missile launchers start following them down the street and they can't get the doors open. That's an adventure. That works. Sometimes these things will work out because getting away from the helicopters and not dying in the limousine as it was crushed in a horrific alleyway helicopter limousine crash, which would have been awesome to look at, the characters not dying there was amazing. The characters realizing that they'd been sprayed by nanotechnology that was tracking their every movement and allowing the rest of the helicopters to follow them, priceless. It became a chase adventure. Chase adventures are fine. They had to get away from people who were following them because they'd stolen the limousine, consequences of actions, and it ended up in the firefight that I'd eventually planned for the thing to end up in. All worked out fine. Sometimes it works out fine. Sometimes it doesn't. Now, if any of the people who played in the next game that I'm going to describe happen to see this video or recognize themselves, you will probably already have realized you deserved everything you got. Just saying. I run a Star Wars game. It is the era just after Episode 4, A New Hope, or between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. The player characters are members of the Rebel Alliance. They have been asked by the Rebel Alliance to draw attention away from the relocation of the Rebel Alliance's base to Hoth. They're in a bar in a spaceport. It's amazing how many games start at bars. I've created a fantasy world where there is a bar in the main town called the Bar of the First Encounter, where all the first adventures start. Just seems like a regular routine. I don't personally go to that many bars. Yeah, tangent. They're sitting in a bar. There are stormtroopers walking around. Old man stumbles over to their table and offers to sell them a treasure map. Everyone looks at the party leader. The party leader's like, nah, we don't. We're not getting involved in that. Okay, that's fine. Old man starts having a loud argument with the bartender a little bit later. Bartender's demanding that the old man settle up his bar tab, and he doesn't have any money. Old man says to the bar, anyone who covers my bar tab, I will give this treasure map to. This treasure map goes to anyone who covers my bar tab. Please, I'm going to get arrested here. Someone please help me out. I'll give you a treasure map. Everyone looks to the party leader. Party leader's like, not getting involved now. Bartender calls over some of the stormtroopers. Stormtroopers start dragging the old man out in the street to shoot him in the head. The old man screams at the top of his lungs, please, in the name of the Force, someone save my life. Just take the treasure map. Save me. Everyone looks at the party leader. Party leader's like, no, we're not getting involved in this. Old man gets shot in the head in the middle of the street. His treasure map gets burned. The adventure is over at this point in time. Anyone in a gaming group who sees a treasure map offered to them should realize this is either a false treasure map, which will lead to some kind of horrific danger, or it is an actual treasure map, which will lead to danger that has a reward at the end of it. In either case, that's the adventure. That's what you do when you're sitting around a table rolling dice, is you get into things. The group spent the next 4 hours role-playing an extended trip through hyperspace where the showers didn't work because their alien engineer didn't understand that people got clean with water. Was that a fun gaming session? No, it was not. There were some laughs to be had. People thought it was kind of humorous, but they thought that 4 hours of it was a little bit excessive. And then they had the gall to round on me and suggest that I had run a bad game. I told them I'd run an excellent game, but they had decided not to play that one, so they got 4 hours of a goo shower. I'm not bitter. I did horrible things to that gaming group later on that did involve them actually taking the adventures that I put in front of them, but never forget that your players aren't robots or computer programs. They're not predictable. They're not going to do what you think is the right thing all of the time, or even necessarily part of the time. Your players are people. They're individuals. They are going to be random, as only people can be, as only role players can be. No plan survives encounter with the player characters. My personal solution for that problem is I rarely plan. I have a general idea of what's going on. I have a villain. I know what the villain is doing, villain-based plotting. But as to what exactly is going on today, oh, look, there's a bank robbery. What are you going to do? Suddenly a shot rings out. It's not the universal solution, but it works more often than it doesn't. Thank you for giving me your attention and time. If you liked the video, please feel free to like or share it. That's awesome because I like getting broadcast with these things. Subscribe and see all these videos as they come up. If you really like the video, I invite you to hit me up at www.patreon.com/ScottCorum and consider being a patron. Every bit helps, allows me to be as creative an individual as I can, continue to produce the videos, and role-playing supplements. Even if my creativity sometimes boils down to suddenly a shot rings out. In the meantime, I'm Scott Corum. This is What Has Mattered to Me, and I will see you next time on the next Matters of Decorum. Sometimes you need to teach a cell phone to f***ing fly. You know, there's see how much distance you can get out of it, how many times you can spin it. Cell phones can be skipped off of swimming pools, maybe all the way across, but Every bit helps and allows me to continue producing videos and role-playing supplements and being as creative an individual as I can be, even if every so often I have to punt and say suddenly a shot rings out. If you really liked the video, I invite you to hit me up at www.patreon.com/ScottCorum. Consider being a Every bit helps and allows me to be as creative an individual as I can be, produce these videos and game supplements, and seriously!